Welcome to Is It Covered, where we break down real insurance stories and answer the big question, is it covered? Hosted by father-son duo Bruce and Brian Chapman of the JD Chapman Insurance Agency, this podcast will help you navigate the world of insurance with stories, tips, and answers that really matter. From personal to commercial coverage, we've got you covered. Now let's get started.
Welcome, everybody, to the first ever episode of Is It Covered? I'm Brian Chapman. I'm here with my co-host, Bruce Chapman. He's a man that wears many hats, dad, owner, businessman, insurance man. And this podcast is really going to be all things interactive insurance. We hope to make it kind of an interactive thing with people and kind of giving you an idea of what goes on behind the scenes, what insurance is all about, and hopefully getting into some episodes of, some claims and is it covered?
And not make it boring.
Yeah, not make it boring. Insurance can definitely be one of those things that's, long and kind of dry. So
for sure.
The goal here is to make it engaging for sure. So if you don't know who we are, we're JD Chapman Insurance Agency. For people that do know who we are, we wanted to kind of have this episode to be refreshing and kind of give an idea of who we are and what we do. And Bruce, since you're kind of closest to the origin story between the two of us, if you could give us a little idea as to, where JD Chapman started, how it started, and how you got involved, that'd be awesome.
So I'm your first guest?
Very first and future continual guest.
Okay. Let's see, way back when. How far do you want to go back?
Yeah, the beginning.
Okay, right at the very beginning. So we'll go back to World War II. How's that? So John Chapman gets out of World War II. He's a phys ed teacher, goes to all these different schools. Back then, you didn't do an application online. There was no online. So he stops into schools. He gets shut down everywhere. Finally, he gets an interview and a job at what is now Red Jacket in Manchester, but it was Manchester School District. He is the phys ed teacher, and your grandmother, my mother, Doris Ann Chapman, is the English teacher, and hence they meet, fall in love, and get married. Just you should see the things from the students, because the students had come out of World War II, and they were almost the same age as my mother. And here are these like high school kids hitting on my mom. But anyways, I digress. So they teach for a while, and my dad's like, I need to make more money. So he learns that there's an opportunity with Prudential. And back then it was for a debit agent. And what a debit agent was is they'd essentially go door to door and they'd collect premiums. And they might collect as little as 50 cents or $1, but they'd visit these people every month to collect. And then in that case, you'd be selling more insurance and that sort of thing. So you became a real part of the community at that point. So he actually did really well with that, got some promotions, moved around. Ultimately, he had this entrepreneurial spirit where this isn't good enough, I want my own. So this little agency in downtown Macedon, Henry Kemp, becomes available, up for sale, and my dad buys it. My dad and your grandfather buys it, and they move it to, it was 1958. So my dad needs a loan, goes to the bank, handshake, gets a loan to start a business. Same year, he has to build a house, goes to the bank, handshake, they give him money to build a house. Who would do that today?
Yeah, that doesn't happen.
Exactly. I mean, you go to the bank and you get money based on your reputation and a handshake.
Yeah, that'd be not good nowadays.
Incredible. Yeah. So it all gets going then, and he gets the money to start the business and buy the guy out. And it's in this little itty bitty, it was like a bedroom size. I remember there was a couple desks in there, and it was my mom and dad. Now it's JD Chapman Agency, and the story is D for Doris, his wife, or is D for Donald, his middle name. He went to the grave with that. We never really did find out. But anyway, so they start the business. It's in this little itty bitty room, and eventually they build an addition onto the back of the house with a garage in the front. and they move it out there. They have a few employees. I remember as a little kid hanging out there and, playing with the calculator. The calculator went out to 14 digits and they'd get pissed if I played on it. And then I remember stapling my finger one time with a stapler. And then there was the unstapler, the staple remover.
Okay.
So anyways, they start to grow the business there. My dad, at the time, there were a lot of farmers. And my dad was a farmer originally. He grew up on a farm. And these farmers would have little books of business, typically with Wayne Cooperative. And so my dad went around and he was buying up all these little books of businesses from the farmers, and he kind of consolidated it. And that was sort of the beginning of things for him. Having known a lot of people and been in the community, it was pretty easy for him to get customers. And back in that day, auto insurance was just becoming mandatory. I think it was like in the early to mid 50s where auto insurance was mandatory. So what they would do is auto insurance cost the same for everyone. There was almost no underwriting to it.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, for sure. So you pretty much did business with the person you liked the best. And fortunately, people liked him. So it grew there. And then they decided they needed to move. And I know I've told you this story before and you're smiling already. This is the story of why they moved. So there was a lot of farmers that came to our house. And, farmers, they're out in the fields and they have their big muddy boots on. They take their boots off. And it was wintertime. Little Bruce is crawling around. And next thing you know he's eating dirty snow off the farmer's boots. It had like cow shit and stuff on it. And I got deathly ill. Fortunately, I don't remember that. But my mom said, John, we got to move this place. So we moved it down to Main Street in Macedon, 96 Main Street in Macedon, where the old Masonic Temple was. I remember they remodeled it. It had this wallpaper in it. It was like the Battle of Bull Run wallpaper. It was all this old, like, it was weird. But anyways, things started to grow quite a bit then when they moved downtown. In about, I think, 76 or 77, my brother, Eric, who's 12 years older than me, he came into the business. And Eric really, really launched commercial lines. I remember one of his big accounts, a huge win really early in his career, was writing the insurance for Wayne County. It was a really big win for him. And Eric really, really grew commercial lines in a big, big way. From there, my dad retired in 87, and they bought the Knapp agency, which was in a little itty bitty shop. It was like a little bakery.
Oh, okay.
Eventually. And they tore it down and built the building we're in today. So my big regret is I never got to work with my dad.
Okay.
However, I really enjoy working with you.
Different side of things. Yeah, absolutely.
And Trevor, yeah, for sure. I love working with you guys. So anyways, a few years later, I had been working at Kodak. I worked there from 85 to 90. And they were just starting to lay people off a little bit. And but it was pretty much in the heyday. And I could see there were guys in my design group that were making enough money to put their kids through college and that sort of thing. So one of my big goals was always to be able to pay for college for you guys. Kind of nice to not have any debt, right?
Sure.
Coming out of school. So I could see that probably wasn't going to happen at Kodak. And I asked my brother Eric if there was room for me. Fortunately, there was. And so in 1990, I started. And let's see, I started like around July 1st. And 23 days later, you were born. And that's kind of the beginnings up to where I started in the agency.
Oh, okay. And
Long story.
Yeah, well, hey, I mean, we've been in business for a while, so it's always good to know kind of where you come from and what your roots are.
Yeah.
And then so after you, Trevor, who's my cousin and now our colleague, he joined, correct?
Trevor joined in 2000, and I can remember that because 9/11 had happened and he was pretty new. And Trevor had worked he went to Clarkson, as did Eric. Clarkson seems to be a pretty popular school. I didn't go there, but
Me neither.
Eric's children did. But Trevor started after having worked for a company, I think it was Ralph Earl in Syracuse.
Okay.
And he sold hydraulic and pneumatic cylinders and stuff to industry.
Gotcha.
Yep.
And so then in terms of family members, then I guess next is when I would come along, correct?
Yep. But in between that, we hired a bunch of people on our staff. I mean, we really don't have any turnover. And in the insurance industry, there's been a lot of turnover. So we've been really fortunate. But then, we hired some other people. Kevin works with us now, Kevin Musey. And then you were the next family member.
Yeah, and you're right, too. I mean, a lot of the people that work there now, I remember going into the office as a kid.
Yeah.
And they were there. So that was always an interesting transition coming to work now. And there's people there that have known you since you were a little boy.
I know, for sure. And then we have pictures of you and Gina as little kids sitting in like Eric's chair and stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I guess I was destined to sit in that chair always from the time I was a kid.
That's right. You're in that chair now, aren't you?
Yeah, I am.
So, yeah, for sure you were. Yeah.
So it sounds like a lot of us, and it seems to be like the unwritten rule with JD Chapman is you kind of go out, make it on your own, get some type of experience, and then, end up joining the family business from there. That seems to be the MO.
Definitely. And, I think that's important as there's a lot of businesses that have that written right into their succession plans and stuff. But it's important that you can go out and make a living on your own and know that, this is here for me if I want it, but I need to know that I'm able to make a living on my own and not just like in the family business.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I know that just from my experience of doing other jobs and being a part of other, different sectors of business and stuff, you kind of learn what works and what doesn't work and what values a company has that you align with and what other values you're not so much interested in. So, I guess that kind of leads us into what are some of the values, I guess, that JD Chapman's kind of built itself on from the ground up and kind of continuing today.
Actually, before that, I wanted to ask about your journey.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I told you the journey there, and I know that you've had a pretty interesting journey. So what brings you? How did you get involved in the agency?
Yeah, and that's a great question. Just like we were talking about, I went and did something previous before joining the agency.
But you had some interesting jobs.
Yeah, certainly had some interesting jobs. I graduated SUNY Brockport in 2012 with a degree in phys ed. Moved out west to Colorado thinking that I could find a job in phys ed out there. Had some interviews, really wasn't paying, what I needed at the time to live. So I had some experience from working at places like Country Max and other various farm type places. So I got a job ultimately at a place called Ranchway that we made horse and grain and all kinds of feed for animals. And that was an interesting job. I learned a lot. That was a pretty hard labor job for sure.
But you got to meet a lot of people and you got to interact with a lot of people and a lot of not just business people. They were everyday people that work hard for a living.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
People we like to do business with.
Absolutely. Yeah, it really teaches you an appreciation for people that, work hard. And
of course.
So that was a good job. I met a lot of folks, from outside the U.S. as well.
Yeah.
So I got a whole second look at, brushing up on my Spanish and all kinds of stuff.
Spanglish?
Yeah, correct. So that was a good job. Ultimately, it's kind of tough on your body doing physical labor all day. I ended up taking another job with a colleague of mine from Ranchway at this place called Sun Mountain Doors and basically worked on this big machine that glued door parts together all day long, just kind of standing on an assembly line. Really wasn't doing it for me. So
I worked in a machine shop as a machinist apprentice and had to do that every day, day in and day out. And I totally understand that.
Yeah, it's not really the lifestyle that I wanted. And I remember, interviewing or trying to put in applications at different places. And I remember speaking to you and you were like, well, why don't you try something in sales? Or I think you had suggested auto sales too. So I remember I went to an interview, I believe it was like with Aflac or something, some insurance place. And I'm like, this doesn't seem quite it. I stopped at a dealership on my way home and just gave them an application. And the guy kind of looked it over and he's like, you got a minute for an interview? I said, oh yeah, sure. No problem. Just completely caught off guard. We do the interview. I leave there. I'm like, that didn't go so hot. This guy's not going to hire me. So I call him back the next day and just said, I had nothing to lose. Just say, hey, where are we at? Do you want a follow-up interview? Where do things stand? And he said, I'll get back to you. And then he called me, and I think that was like the next day. And he goes, well, if you have the gumption to call me back and ask for the job, he goes, you probably have the gumption to call, ask somebody to buy a car. So he goes, you're hired. We'll start you tomorrow selling cars. I said, okay.
Awesome.
So I did that. I worked there for 4 or 5 years, was a sales manager, was a finance manager for a little while. But that was kind of my intro into sales and dealing with people and business relationships and banking and stuff like that. And I liked it. I liked dealing with people. I loved that. I loved the sales part of it. The car sales part, not always. But so then I moved from Colorado to Boston, Massachusetts, where I ended up meeting my wife. And then from there, in Boston, I was working as a recruiter. So it was a different type of sales. I was selling people, so to speak, trying to get people into jobs and
legally selling people.
Yes, legally, right? Yes. So I did that for a little while, and then I remember Uncle Eric was coming up on retirement. I was moving back to the New York area, and I think you and I just kind of always had an open conversation about it. And I think you sat me down and we talked about what it would look like, and I thought, wow, that's a pretty good opportunity for myself. I better take it.
You told me that it was the long game.
It's a long game, for sure.
But like the fast hit of selling cars, it's not like that. It's the long game.
Yeah, and that's what insurance I feel like is. It's you got to be in it for the long haul.
I'm glad you understood that.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to build relationships. It's it's an ongoing thing. People stay with you. They renew their policies with you. They do that because they like you and your agency and what you have to offer, instead of just buying a policy and going somewhere else the next year.
So how did those sales jobs translate into what you do now? What do you?
I think a lot of what I learned was how to read people, I guess, was what you'd say, and how to understand what their, I guess, buying signals might be, or how to take somebody through a buying process. I've always been a low pressure type person. It's not something that you can really ram down someone's throat, but it becomes more of an educational thing. And I think when I was selling cars, I realized that once I was educating people, I was selling more, rather than just trying to sell somebody on, what do we got to do to get you to buy this thing now?
Do you think that your education or your college degree in education helped you with that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, education is just that, educating people.
Right.
And taking somebody through a process. So yeah, I think it helped. For sure. Perfect. Yeah, absolutely.
So you were asking about, what was your other question before I interrupted you?
No, that's okay. We were talking about values. It seems like all of us have gone out and done something else and learned about the values of these other companies and what we liked and didn't like. So I guess, what are kind of the values that we have now that we've built on and that we continue to have?
Values, they're kind of like innate, they're in your bloodstream and your DNA, so you probably don't think about them a lot. But we like to deal with people honestly, with integrity, and not sugarcoat things. People need to know what the real deal is, as far as, sometimes we have hard conversations with cost and claims and things like that. So I like to say kind of the golden rule: treat others as you'd like to be treated. So I always try to keep that in mind, that, what would I want? When I'm doing a presentation, I lay it out like, what would I want to know?
Yeah.
When I'm dealing with someone, what would I want to know? And I think that's done me well over the years, is just to keep that. It's so simple, do unto others, right, as you'd want to have done to you. So
absolutely. So I mean, that might be kind of the secret of being in business for 60 years, is that very simple kind of golden rule, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think that's huge. Yep. And on the other side too, we have to, like, insurance is 2 sales. There's a sale. This is mainly with commercial insurance. You have to sell the account. So you go out, you meet the insured, the commercial account. You find out what they're all about. You learn about their business. And then you have to take that information and come back and sell it to an underwriter. So especially if there's a little hair on it, or there's some issues. So you have to honestly sell that to them, get their approval, and then at that point you can get your quote. So we have the 2 sales, the second one being to the insured. But the important thing is, again, honesty and having that relationship with your companies and your underwriters. Because if you don't have that relationship, then they're going to suspect everything that you tell them.
Right.
Once you, it's a harsh word, but if you lie to them and they find out, your credibility's gone. And like they say, I mean, I guess we're full of cliches today, right? But it takes a lifetime to build your credibility, but minutes to destroy it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I noticed that with one of the first things that I did when I got into the business. I think you had me call some of the underwriters at these different companies and introduce myself and just tell them, hey, I'm joining. Yeah. And the overwhelming response that I got from everybody was, wow, we're so happy to have you part of such a great agency. And I remember thinking like, wow, okay, so they've done a good job, building this relationship, building that brand for yourself as the agency that does things the right way. I was like, I got to shoulder that now. That's on me. I'm ready to take on that same responsibility, and I like it. That's how I've always done things. So it was just like you said, it's innate. It's just kind of a value that lives in you, and you bring out every day, pretty much.
It goes beyond money, in my opinion. I mean, the money's great. I'm obviously you want to make money. That's what we're in business for. But your name's on the building. And I find that there's pride in that. And I think Eric and my dad and Eric and Trevor and you and me, I mean, there's more pride in the name and the reputation, and knowing that and doing the right thing means that you will get customers and you'll be successful.
Absolutely. Yeah. Unfortunately, not all places are run like that, but
no, and
it just goes to show. Yeah,
exactly. So you're in this little world, this little JD Chapman bubble, right? And you don't necessarily know what other people do, but then you have to call somewhere for customer service, and it's atrocious. So just giving a little bit of customer service, just the basics, goes a long way. And obviously we try to go way beyond that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it gives you a full understanding of that.
Right. And I know one of the other things when I joined too was a lot of the people that I had spoke with that were clients of ours, they said, wow, we really love your team. Such and such CSR really gets back to me. They do the things they say they're going to do.
Constantly.
And I know that you've always kind of preached that our employees are the glue that kind of holds it all together.
Yeah, for sure.
And, I think that's huge. Again, having the low turnover and just when you sell a policy or when you bring someone into the, JD Chapman family, so to speak, that they're going to be taken care of with the people behind you.
Absolutely. And I totally agree with that. And, to treat everyone with respect too. You treat your clients with respect, but it's really important to treat your employees with respect because, like you say, they're the glue that holds it together.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I agree 100%. Yeah. So I guess is our kind of team approach to things, one of the reasons why people like to do business with us. I mean, is that something you've heard echoed when you, in your tenure there, or?
What I hear is they will, because every person is assigned a customer service rep or a CSR. And I hear over and over again that I love working with Mary or Crystal or, any one of them. And, they get the job done. They take pride in what they do.
Absolutely.
And to me, the staff is like family to me. They are family. In my life, I kind of segment things into like families,
Sure.
Actually, you're part of my family.
Not by my choice.
No. I didn't choose you, but you weren't a bad.
Yeah, okay.
You turned out okay. So, but like all the other different things that I get involved in, I just like personal relationships, and I feel family relationships.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think, again, too, and I'm going back to when I first joined, I know you're pretty active in the community. And I know JD Chapman, as the business or, family, we're pretty active in the community and giving back and Rotary and all kinds of different stuff. And I think that goes a long way, too, because
for sure.
It shows a not so self-centered approach, and I think that just comes by you naturally and
it's
kind of
important
trickles
to
down.
give back.
For sure.
Because the community gives us a lot. So I feel an obligation to give back.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yep.
And I think they appreciate it.
Yeah, I think
Absolutely.
so.
100%.
Who doesn't like a few bucks?
Yeah, right? Yeah, we get to go to some cool events. So
For sure.
Yeah. So we keep talking about clients. I guess it would probably be a good idea to tell everyone. So who are our clients? Who do we deal with? What are the folks that come to us, and who are the people we look for?
Wow, you're asking the hard questions. So, as far as like personal lines clients, I mean, anyone is a personal lines client. The people that I like the best, both commercially and personal lines, are people that really kind of want to understand what they're buying, that it's more than just a dollar amount. Mm-hmm. It's understanding what is at risk and how to cover it, and what the nuances are. Commercially, definitely, those are my favorite clients. The people that are just want what's the bottom line cost, I mean, they're great too. And they rely on us to make sure that we do the right thing.
Right.
But the ones that understand are my favorite. They're the best customers we have.
I agree, because it goes back. It feels like we're educating them, right? They're asking questions. They're engaged, and you feel good about, okay, well, now this person completely understands what they're paying for, rather than I'm just looking at the X amount of dollars I'm spending per month.
And insurance can be complicated. There's, I mean, just look at these policies. There's all kinds of legal gobbledygook in them, and people don't understand it.
No.
So I like to have the opportunity to explain it a little bit to people, not overly explain it or have too much detail, but enough so that they get the idea of what they're paying for. I tell people, I go, you're buying an expensive piece of paper and a promise. and sometimes, as I've mentioned to you, we recommend you don't use that promise. Like if you have too many claims, and you put one more in, it's the straw that breaks the camel's back. You might need to pay for something on your own.
Absolutely. Now, being in the industry, I think I've learned that that's kind of one of the advantages with being, maybe with more of like an independent broker type person, is that they're your insurance advisor, right?
Agreed. Yeah,
and
absolutely.
You can come to, I have a bunch of clients' information in my phone. They text me questions. They call me questions. Yeah. And that's what we're here to do. So I think that's something I've learned from you guys. And
that's what we encourage people to do.
Right. Yeah.
Because, if certain places you go to, that maybe they have reptiles and things as mascots. When you call there, you'll never get the same person twice. And all they are doing when you have a claim, they're just taking claim information. They don't look at what you've done in the past or know you really on a personal level to be able to advise you to say, you might not want to turn that one in.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you don't ever talk to the same person. You get passed to someone else. So I think that continuity of, I guess that's more of a healthcare term, but that continuity of care that you have, when you talk to your agent. And that's the other thing too. I'll tell people, you're paying a premium for that insurance policy and that piece of paper, but you're also not paying to have access to us, but use us, because that's what we're here for.
I put in my proposals all the time, and I encourage mainly my commercial clients, is think of us as your insurance department. Call me when you think you might have a little claim, or call me if you even have a business question. How do you handle this?
Right.
Anything like that.
So do you find, and I find this a lot, I find that a lot of people have some pretty severe misconceptions of insurance. Mm-hmm. Is there a few that like stick out to you that you hear all the time? Like, oh, I was always told that I should never use my insurance, and I never want to put a claim in, or insurance is a scam, or what am I paying for? And those types of things.
I've heard I should never turn in a claim kind of thing. And that's really false. I mean, you did buy a product and you did buy insurance. But maybe you don't want to turn in a claim that's going to pay you $100.
Right.
But, and I hear that more commercially even too, because in commercial lines, the premiums are bigger. They seem to be able to withstand more claim activity. But they have that personal lines mindset that, well, if I turn in 3 claims, I'm going to get canceled kind of thing.
Right.
So you definitely hear that a lot.
And I think that's a lot of hopefully what we can kind of bring to this podcast moving forward is claim scenarios of, is it covered? Should I turn this in?
Yeah.
Those types of things, because I think those are the value add things that people kind of want to hear about, right? They don't want to know about the double negative insurance speak and the language and the policy.
Yeah.
They don't care about that.
No.
Is it covered or is it not covered?
And, the problem too with insurance is there's so many gray areas.
Yeah.
It's like, you really got to turn the claim in to determine that. But so the popular answer a lot of times is when they ask, is it covered? You say, it depends.
Yeah, that's the standard answer. Yeah, and it really does. It does depend. A lot of the times people ask very specific. They're going to take out a policy, and they start to get in. They want to make sure they're covered, but they start to get into the nitty gritty of, okay, well, what if these particular things happen at my job site or happen at my business? And it's always it's always worth the conversation. Call us, no matter what.
I love those questions.
Yeah. Well, that'll be the basis of this for sure. I think because we do. Run into some interesting claims, some different claims. I remember you said one of the 2 most exciting things that happens in your day is when you can get a claim paid, or get a claim that was originally denied paid for. Yeah.
Yeah. So to expand on that,
or maybe I screwed that up.
My 2 favorite times in this business is 1, when I write a nice big account, and 2, when I can get a claim paid that was originally denied. So diving into things, finding policy language, determining that it wasn't necessarily handled properly, but that's a big win for me.
Oh, for sure.
It. Yeah.
And I've noticed too with like the claims, and some of these companies are really, moving more towards that. They're using a lot of AI or different tools or things that have kind of come out now. So have you seen in your lifetime, probably, from mailing in a quote and getting it back to a fax to now online to email? I mean, what have you seen?
Back in my day.
Yeah, right. Send it by the carrier pigeon and then, right.
So my brother Eric really has seen a lot because he started in 76. When you first started writing auto insurance, it was all by hand. You had to go to all these different books and calculate it and everything. And even some of the commercial stuff when I started doing that. But when I started, we had one little computer. It was like an Apple computer for rating, and they'd send you these little floppy disks that you put in there. So the computer was named Millie.
No,
because we had an employee named Millie who retired. And we never replaced her, but we used the computer and we called it Millie. So you'd rate on there. The only thing they really ever ran was a motor vehicle report. No accident reports or anything. You'd go out on personal lines. I'd go out after hours. Remember, I was gone a lot in the evening on night appointments. So I'd meet with people at their kitchen table. And I really got modern, though. I had this little laptop. It was unbelievably expensive. Actually, it was worth more than the car I was driving. I used to think that. But I could rate right there. And then I had this cool little printer so I could print out the apps and stuff there.
Oh, cool.
So we would do that. And then commercially, you'd fill out the application, you'd mail it to the company, you'd get a quote back, or you'd have to rate little accounts right out of their book. So there was some. It was a slower time, though.
Yeah, for sure. I feel
in a way it was better.
Yeah, now it's kind of higher, faster pace, higher volume, obviously because of the technology that we have. And it just begs the question, what's next? What's next moving forward? I know that's a question. It's the hot topic. Everyone talks about it, technology, AI, all this stuff. And, you and I have talked about maybe that the personal lines thing, so auto, home, boat, the stuff that's already kind of online that you can quote yourself,
right?
But you might want an independent agent like us to help you through the process.
Right. That's what we're here for.
Right.
And we can compare all different companies for you, too.
Exactly, yeah. It seems like that those personal lines kind of are going more towards that self-service kind of thing, but the commercial insurance is much more in depth. There's a lot more coverages. It's not really something that you can go online and quote, but there's my point being that the technology is kind of bringing it more towards an independent agent, almost being specialized more on a commercial side, but having a personal line side to kind of, help people out where you can. I mean, do you see that trend moving forward?
Definitely. And that being said, even though personal line seems to be more like a commodity, I think that it's still a good idea to have an independent agent that you can bounce things off of. And, not necessarily us. It can be any independent agent. I'm a big fan of the independent agent side.
Yeah.
So, I definitely think that. And then, so the future is self-driving vehicles, right? I mean, that's going to happen. It's going to be like the Jetsons. And I should have named you Elroy.
There you go.
My boy Elroy. So anyways, when you have a self-driving car, who's responsible if it gets into an accident? Am I responsible? Is General Motors responsible? And then how does the insurance? What's insurance look like for that?
I agree, yeah.
And let's say you have a self-driving car. Why do I even want to buy one? I just get on my phone and say I want a car to take me here and there, and a car shows up. It's like Uber without drivers.
So it may be in, I don't know what the time frame is on that, in the next 10, 15, 20, 50, 60 years, whatever it ends up being, the scope of insurance will change, I would imagine.
I agree, yeah.
It's
rapidly. You know what I find is that insurance is more reactive because technology gets out ahead of what's covered, and then things happen, and then they rewrite policies to say, that wasn't our intent to cover that, so we're putting an exclusion in for that one.
Right.
That'll be fun when we start doing claim questions, won't it?
Yeah, no, I think that I know people ask me all the time, what's the craziest claim you've seen? What's the biggest claim you've seen? So those types of things, I think people are always interested in hearing about.
Or you hear, is it true? Is a red car really more expensive to insure than another car?
Yeah, no, it is pretty crazy. So I know we've talked about kind of the independent insurance model, and there's a few of us kind of in the Finger Lakes area, but who and where can we service? I mean, are we just kind of the hometown people? Are we all in New York State? I mean,
so it used to be that we kind of said, hey, you know what? We're like a 50-mile radius, and that's kind of, more hometown sort of thing. But now with technology, we're writing accounts that are a lot further away. You don't have to be present to sign an application, and everything can be done online. So I've been writing accounts all over New York. We are licensed in some other states that we do business in. So our geographic area is expanding a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. And with technology, you can have that more personal conversation too with people, or you can kind of connect. Yeah, it stinks that you're not in person and you can't meet somebody face to face, but I've just noticed that the ability to text and call and email and all the stuff that we take for granted actually can help build that relationship, even if they're out in Saratoga Springs or down in the boroughs or whatever it is.
Yeah. I do miss that face to face though.
I do too. I always encourage people. I still make the offer. I'll come to you.
Right.
You can come to the office.
Yep.
You gain a lot more by sitting down and having a face-to-face conversation with somebody.
I agree.
Yeah. 100%.
Well, I like to get to know people.
Yeah.
It's interesting, fascinating jobs that people have, and it's fun to talk to people.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's one of the things I've enjoyed the most too, is of getting to know. Going to see somebody's business. Okay, well, how do you run this? What do you guys do?
Exactly.
What have you found success in? How have you guys been so successful over these last 30 years? And it's just, there's a lot more people out there willing to kind of share that stuff than I think people think.
They're proud of their business.
For sure.
They want to share that. So one of the cool things about commercial insurance, especially when you get into some bigger accounts, is you see all kinds of cool things, manufacturing, and just cool things that people do. And just like you said, how did you build this business? And there's really a lot of facets of what we have to know. So we might have to know what your processes are and what the exposures are, and how do your payrolls. And so even though people think insurance is boring because they open up that policy and read that the sleepy words, the attorney speak.
Yeah.
But there's a lot that goes into an insurance policy.
You almost have to be knowledgeable, a little bit knowledgeable in a lot of different areas, because some of the sectors we serve are all the way from restaurants to various types of manufacturing. Like you said, what's your manufacturing processes?
Right.
Now we've got the cannabis side of things. That's kind of a whole specialty market. So, I mean, really automotive type places, Main Street mom and pop shop, professional insurances for attorneys and lawyers and accountants, to people in a beauty salon. So you start to learn a little about a lot of different industries.
For sure.
Which is always good. Yeah.
And then there's certain industries like the cannabis industry insurance that we've been kind of specializing in, that there's so much involved in that you really need to go to an expert that understands the ins and outs of your industry, which is true of a lot of different things. Manufacturing, daycare. We do a lot of daycare and that kind of thing. So it's important that you talk to someone who understands what your industry is. Right.
Yep. And that kind of goes back to being an independent agent. We have the ability to write a bunch of those things across the board. But a lot of the times, if it's a newer industry that we're not maybe familiar with, or that I'm not familiar with, the underwriters and the relationships we built with them, they're able to kind of pave the path and tell you, these are the things you want to know about this business. These are the things that you should find out from these folks. So, maybe like you've always said, if I don't know the answer, we'll go out and find it for you.
Well, the other thing too is there's certain specialties that I'm always going to stay away from, like aviation.
Yep.
I don't know anything about aviation insurance, but you need to go to an expert that understands that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, is there anything else that you've kind of got on your mind? Anything that you want to bring up before we wrap this thing up, or?
I don't know. I don't see a clock here.
40 minutes.
Oh, okay. Anything else that I want to wrap up? Let's see here. Well, just I enjoy working with you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been nice.
On a personal note, I like that a lot. I enjoy. We have a meeting every Friday where we producers get together and talk about different accounts. I enjoy that a lot. Overall, this has been an awesome industry. It's been. I feel really blessed to be in it. We've helped a lot of people. We've helped people save money. We've helped people through some really serious claims. So it's nice to be in an industry where you can be there for people.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yep. And it's been nice to kind of get my feet wet within insurance and kind of look to the future and then see how much good there is in front of us. So
yeah,
absolutely.
Sure. I'm looking forward to ongoing where we kind of dive into is it covered sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also would encourage people to reach out with claim scenarios. They could reach us via email. So probably what would be best email? Brian at jdchapmaninc.com.
Yep, you can reach us there, and we'll put all of our information in the show notes for everybody, perfect. So that they can reach out to us. But excellent. Yeah, I would encourage, and I would hope this thing kind of becomes more of an interactive type deal where we can answer those scenarios. So before we sign off from Is It Covered, just have people thinking about that would be a good idea.
Right. Plus, too, we can make that a little bit more fun, too.
Yeah. Our goal is to make this kind of fun and interactive and
sure.
educational at the same time. So, well, if that's all, I appreciate everybody listening. And, it's the inaugural episode of Is It Covered?
I guess that's our tagline. Is it covered?
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, that's all really I have.
I'm good, too.
Perfect.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to the Is It Covered podcast. To learn more about how JD Chapman can assist you with all your insurance needs, please visit our website at www.jdchapmaninc.com or call us at 315-986-4062. JD Chapman, we've got you covered.